Our gospel reading for this morning is Luke's account of that first morning of resurrection. In Luke's gospel, several of Jesus' women followers have observed where Jesus' body has been taken. But with evening and the Sabbath quickly arriving, they go back to where they're staying, prepare spices for Jesus' body, and then they wait. They rest as the commandment required, waiting for Sunday morning when our reading begins. Listen for what the Spirit may speak to us this day. But on the first day of the week at early dawn, they came to the tomb taking the spices they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen clothes by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. In recent weeks, I've seen several versions of an Easter Facebook joke that goes something like this. In an effort to be more biblical, only women will be attending this year's Easter sunrise service. Over the years, many have remarked how the story of women only being the witnesses to the empty tomb must be a historical account. No one would have invented such a story. People still sometimes dismiss the reports of women in our day. Imagine what it was like when women were not considered citizens, when they were not permitted to testify at a trial, when they were considered someone's property, a father, a husband. And not surprisingly, in our gospel, no one believes the women when Luke tells the story of that first Easter morning. You've no doubt heard the story before. Some of Jesus' female disciples have followed when they took the body to the tomb, and then they have returned to wherever they're staying and prepared spices and rested because the commandment required such. Then early on Sunday morning, they take the spices to the tomb, hoping to finally provide the tender care for Jesus they had not been able to do, had not had time for on Friday evening. But when they arrive, the tomb is open and the body is missing. And while they're standing there wondering what to do, two men in dazzling clothes, later identified as angels, say to them, "He's not here, but has risen," and remind the women of how Jesus had told them that he would be crucified and would rise on the third day. And so Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary, the mother of James, and other women hurry back to tell the 11 and the others what they had found. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. I probably wouldn't have believed them either. Even if it had happened in 2019, when women aren't routinely dismissed, unless they're contradicting a man. But I know what's possible and what isn't. I know that dead bodies stay dead. Even if I believe that the soul somehow moves on, I know that the body is still in the grave. He is not here, but has risen. What a cockamamie idea. Who would believe such a thing? But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Peter was among those who did not believe the women's report, and yet he rushes to the tomb. Why rush to investigate an idle tale? Every week here in the office, I receive a number of emails informing me that I, and sometimes this congregation, have several $1 million waiting for us to claim. Some person I've never heard of has died, and she wants her money to go to someone or some church that will use it well. All I need to do is provide some financial information, and the funds will be on their way. I've never bothered to respond to one of these emails. I know it's a scam, something designed simply to steal my financial information. I know that this truly is a foolish, idle tale. There are those who think similarly about the Easter message. He is not here, but has risen. They think it a foolish, idle tale created to get people to do foolish things, to give their money and their time and their energy to an institution built on that idle tale. Now, such thinking is likely not common among those gathered to celebrate Easter, but that does not mean that our skepticism and our cynicism and our certainties about what is and what isn't possible don't get in the way of our embracing the power of resurrection, the hope of Easter. Like me, many of you probably know that dead people stay dead. Perhaps, like me, some of you are worried about evil and hate. You've seen the resurgence of racism in America, how easily people are manipulated to fear those who are different from them. Perhaps you once thought that the world was on an inexorable march towards a better day, towards more freedom and more democracy and a rising standard of living, but now authoritarians are on the rise. The climate is in peril. Wage disparity is a growing problem. It is more difficult to trust in the inevitability of progress, in some innate self-correcting goodness that keeps humanity from going completely off the rails. It is all too easy to become anxious, even depressed. He is not here, but has risen. The power of evil is real. People do terrible, awful things, and the world is indeed often in a mess. But the power of God is greater. In Jesus, God enters fully into the human condition, into its pain and suffering. Evil seizes the moment, and does its very worst across a grave. Evil has won. Hope has died. Except he is not here, but has risen. You and I know better than to believe in such a foolish, idle tale. And yet here we are. Like Peter, we have somehow experienced the power of God in this person, Jesus. And so we rush to the tomb and find it is empty. He is not here. Could it be true? Could he really be risen? There is a curious thing about the reports of resurrection, of the resurrection found in the Gospels. They actually don't report it at all, only its aftermath. There's no Hollywood treatment. There's no light from heaven. There's no glow coming from the tomb. There's no transformation of Jesus' lifeless body. There's only an empty tomb and some leftover cloth. For the gospel writers, the resurrection is mystery that they make no attempt to depict or to explain. They have little interest, no interest in mechanics or any questions of how. Their concern is in he is not risen. He is not here, but has risen. Their concern, what matters to them, is that what God is up to in Jesus cannot be stopped. Not by the worst evil can muster, not even by death. He is not here, but has risen. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Thanks be to God.